89 and Park District proposal. So what you guys have before you is the same calendar that we were given back in early July, where School District 89 is trying to merge their elementary school activities. So before, School District 89 used to be K through 8 in all of the schools. Now they only have the middle school as Irving. So to be able to use the bigger gym that they can do multiple activities at one time, they're requesting to partner with the Park District as well as the village to make sure that our youth have activities. So with that being said, I want to turn it over to School District 89.
Thank you, Mayor Burke. Village members, thank you for having me today. It was a privilege to come here and speak with you. It's actually my first time, so.
Welcome.
I see something with it, just kind of tackle that one way. You give me a moment to bore you a little bit. Hopefully, I might
Knock yourself out if you're vaccinated.
I might answer some of the questions you may have regarding the joint venture between us and the Park District. I was a teacher, and I have been a teacher for 15 years in District 89. For the last 2 years, I've been the district administrative athletic director. I was appointed 2 years ago, and if you can imagine, 2 years ago wasn't much athletics, but it gave me a lot of time to think and how I want to develop our program. Because about 7 or 8 years ago, we did restructure our district, and we sort of left the elementary schools behind, and it was unfortunate. But when we restructured, we made Irving Middle School and Stevenson Middle School true junior highs. At one time, we were all K through 8 buildings, and at that time, everyone was playing sports, everyone was playing athletics. Since then, since the restructure, I've noticed a steady decline in skill level and development, and complicated, like, we gotta bring back athletics back to our elementary schools. And so, with the pandemic, giving a lot of time to think, first thing I did is just reach out to Lynette, and I know with the Park District, it's sort of sat down with her and said, how can we help each other, how can we help these kids? And so, starting right now, we have a true, all elementary schools have 10 sports going on. 10 sports for the whole school year. In fall, we have cross country, basketball, and boys soccer. So, the 200 building offers more opportunities for our kids to, get instruction, get clinics through some of the resources that Annette has provided. It offers an opportunity for our community to come together on a Wednesday night and watch our kids play. We talked about basketball. We've also talked about other things that we want to do there, and we're open to have as much as we can have there, as long as it's available, as long as it's safe, and it provides a service for our kids. Lynette and I share a very common thread, is that we want to develop young kids and move them on to high school level where they can succeed. Right now, those kids aren't succeeding. Now we're leaving them; they're not getting proper instruction, they're not getting proper coaching, and so having more facilities, having more opportunities will provide that for our students. So.
My athletic supervisor is behind me, he's new, so he haven't been here yet. But when Mr. Lawrence and I first got together, the one thing that we did emphasize is the fact that feeder programs basically usually come from the Park District. We do work with our parent organizations, but sometimes parent organizations like to check and groom the diamonds in the rough and leave everybody else on the wayside. Park District programs are there to make sure that everybody has the fundamental basics and or the level of training that they need to have in order for them to all to excel, not just the diamonds in the rough. So when we started our collaboration talking, we started thinking beyond the fact that the school district has the programs. The school district might have the programs, but we'll have the backup programs for them to do the clinicals, to do the training, to trainings. And not just the trainings of the kids, training the coaches, training the, officials. We have the ability to do all of that. And that's the sort of encouragement, not just one part, but the entire part of this entire package.
That was,
Yeah, we have questions.
so, did you have anything else to say?
No, pretty much that's what I want to say.
All right, anybody have any questions?
Mayor.
Trustee Brandon?
Yes, so I did see on the schedule that there were, Saturdays included. What hours, were included for Saturdays?
Saturdays are kind of, up in the air. We were looking at no more than 9 o'clock in the morning, so maybe 3:30 in the afternoon. It's not an all day, all day, unless it's a tournament, and if it's a tournament, we would let the village know that way in advance, because we do know our tournament times and our tournament schedules. So that would be something that we would submit in writing.
And the reason why I asked for Saturdays and any evening hours, is simply pertaining to, any overtime. The village closes at a certain time, so, that question will be for the village manager in regards to, overtime and having employees to stay overtime for those additional hours and how would, that be covered? And so the other question is pertaining to insurance. So I know we have 2 or 3 separate governing bodies involved here, the village, the park district, and the school district. Who would be responsible for,
Everybody's additionally insured on each other's insurance.
repeat
So
that again?
the school district would be naming the park district and the village.
Mm-hmm.
The park district would be naming the school district and the village, to make sure that everybody's covered with insurance.
Okay. Okay, and so my other question was just for the village manager in regards to the overtime hours on those evening hours as well as the weekends. Because I know we kind of been down this road before with other organizations utilizing the 200 building. And, you know, what has been the situation in regards to making sure that there was no overtime, but the village wasn't impacted by any overtime costs pertaining to any outside entities utilizing, village facilities. So that would be my final concern in regards to that, is just the overtime hours for the hours that was mentioned on the Saturdays, as well as, those evening hours.
Yeah, so
Thank
Trustee
you.
Brandon, just to jump in real quick. The purpose of doing the agreement between the park district, the village, and the school district 89 is that the village wouldn't assume any overtime hours, because the park district athletics team and the athletics coordinator would be handling the activities in partnership with school district 89. So the village would not have to deal with any overtime hours. That's the point of doing the partnership with the park district and school district 89.
So again, I'm just gonna refer back to the manager in regards to that whole piece in regards to what I just mentioned in regards to, how that worked, because we still, so who's gonna be, could you say that the partnership is coming forth later? So I'm just talking about what the information that I read within the packet, right? In regards to the times and the dates they were asking for to operate out of, because I didn't have the additional, the agreement wasn't in the package that will be forthcoming. So again, my concern is about who's gonna be, closing and opening, the building. What is the village's responsibility in regards to overtime? What role will we play? I know the mayor just mentioned about someone from the park district or overseeing the space, but I'm just talking about the red in the packet, so.
Trustee Brandon, is your concern related to cleaning the facility?
Well, over any hours that would be spent from the village staff, in regards to opening and closing the facility, in regards to any overtime hours. Like I said, the village has been down this, path before in regards to allowing outside entities, and, the rule of thumb has always been that, any hours outside of village hours that we, have to have an employee come and, close, the building or open up the doors outside of those
Understood.
hours, that the entity will be responsible for, any of those hours.
Okay, so it sounds like that's something that needs to be ironed out in the IGA.
Yes.
And,
So we're not at the IGA conversation. This is space use specifically for this. The IGA conversations of building use is not where we're at right now. This specifically is for School District 89 and the Park District to use the gym facilities, not the whole 200 building. So we're just talking to Attorney Jerusik. Realistically, we don't have to go into overtime for this because again, the purpose of two governing bodies managing the building can simply be having a police officer unlock and lock the door. There doesn't need to have to be someone standing there working that shift because you have two governing bodies operating the activities. It's not a parent company or anything like that. So I think the IGA or like the building use of the entire building is a future conversation. This is specifically on this schedule that we could work with the police department to do something as simple as if there's hours that exceed operating hours of building and code or public works, that the police department will lock the door because they have a key to the facility.
Right, again, to the manager, like, that has to be spelled out in whatever we're doing, right? So like, I wasn't to assume that we were gonna have a police officer, opening and closing up a building, right? So that needs to be, again, the manager needs to be spelled out, needs to be clear of how that looks, so that, I don't have any question marks in regards to who's gonna be responsible for ensuring that one of the village assets is properly maintained, open and closed, all that good stuff, without the village going into overtime.
So
Thank you.
I'll
Trustee.
defer that to the Attorney Jerusik because he already knows what he
No,
does.
the question was to the manager, wasn't it?
I understand that was your preference, but Attorney Jerusik already has a solution that will be included in the paperwork. So that's something that he already has an answer to.
Yeah, this type of use would go under what we have a license agreement that covers indemnification and limited use of the gym or limited use of other parts of the 200 building. It's the same template we've used with a number of other tenants. We would just use that same license agreement. We would attach these documents, tweak our license agreement to match the two entities and your commitments, and we'd have the board approve it at the next meeting. And then that would take care of this matter.
Yeah, when I envision this, I envision to go online with, elementary school schedules, okay? Or we're talking Monday through Thursday, having, Thursday, not having events there, from 4 to 6 o'clock, and that's it. Special circumstances, and we can talk about it, we traditionally never have anything on weekends, but because we have a larger program now, there may be instances where we might need to use the gym on Saturday. And we will definitely communicate that amongst ourselves and amongst yourselves as well, if that date arises.
And anything we don't have to have clinicals after their 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, well, we would go past 8:30, period. There's no programs to go, we have no past 8:30.
And we're talking little kids, so we're not gonna bring those kids out.
Village Manager Wells Armstrong.
thank you. Just so I can get clarification from Trustee Brandon, are you stating, Trustee Brandon, that in the past, you all have not given a key to the entities that have been in agreement with the village? I'm just trying to get a gauge of when you,
So, right,
your
so,
concern.
right, so, the concern is, like, so who's, from the village end, who's gonna be, overseeing, the space, opening and closing the space? And so what I'm hearing is, which is forthcoming, but I'm just talking about the information that I, read over in the packet. So, which is, only pertaining to the gymnasium part of the building, which has a door, that we have to open and close. And so, in talking about the hours that were talked about potentially over the weekend and during the week, who's gonna be responsible for that, and, will that, put the village in a overtime situation? We talked about games ending at 8:30, and then we want an officer to do it. So, those are things that we have to discuss as a unit of what's the best, method or the best way to handle the situation collectively together.
Trustee Plummer.
I just wondering, how was it handled in the past?
So in the past, trustee, so we had, only during the operation hours of the village, the entity was allowed to utilize the space at for free, basically. And then after those hours, right, or any hours that will have, after our operational hours, which have, employee opening and closing of facility, that entity would have to pay a certain amount per hour after the operational hours that the village was operating. So if the village is closed on Saturday at 12:01, after 1 p.m., the entity will pay those additional hours for that employee opening and closing the facility. So now I'm hearing a different proposal about having an officer open and close the buildings, but that still has to be communicated from this board on if you feel like that's feasible or not.
So trustee Brandon, is it your stance that no other entities aside from the governing body of the village of Maywood had keys to unlock and lock the building? You're saying that didn't happen?
Your question is what?
Did anyone aside from a village of Maywood employee have a key to open and lock that door?
So what I'm saying.
It's a simple yes or no, trustee Brandon.
No.
Was there a key for
Because
someone who was not an employee? It's just a simple yes or no,
The
trustee
context is
Brandon.
important. The reason why the context is important.
It's a yes or no.
Can I finish, please? The reason why the context is important, additional context, is because of the problems that had occurred when the village allowed it to happen. So that's why I'm bringing it to the table today to make sure that we don't repeat those, those negative patterns. So
All right.
that's why I'm asking the village manager, what would be the best route to, or how we're gonna handle that piece in regards to having the village make sure it protects its own assets.
Gotcha. So I think the Park District wanted to introduce their athletics coordinator.
I have been, in pursuit of an athletic supervisor for a minute. At this time, I'd like to introduce to the new face of the Park District. His name is Rod Cheney. Rod Cheney comes to us with close to 35 years of Park District experience. 40, see, I was close, 42. Mr. Cheney, could you kind of explain, and Mr. Cheney has met with, Mr. Lawrence already, and they've already meshed, but can you kind of explain to them who you are, what you do?
Well, good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm so glad to be here and so glad that, the Maywood Park District allowed me to come here and try to do some of the things that I've done, not only in Chicagoland area, but also in Indianapolis. I'm a former director of the Indianapolis Parks Department. I'm also a former director in Broadway. So I'm very familiar. Also, I'm the area director of the Chicago Park District, where I had 138 parks. So I've been involved with Parks and Rec all my life. This is all we know. Not only me, my brother's an educator, and he's also been in athletics and sports for over 40 years. All my relatives, my cousins, we either educators or coaches. So once again, I thank you very much for the opportunity to share some of my expertise and bring some of my resources to the village of Maywood. Oh, okay. One thing I wanted to do here was certify our coaches, so that our kids get the benefit of not only getting good coaching, but getting certified coaching, which takes them to a different level. What I'm finding out now, a lot of high schools, especially basketball and even football, some programs have declined a little bit because they don't have good feeders. So what we want to do is certify coaches and train the trainer. So that's the process that we're going to do this year. And not only do the clinics, we do workshops, not just in basketball or football. We talk about track and field, we talk about tumbling, those types of things, gymnastics, floor exercise, cross beam, those types of things. Track and field. She's stuck on track and field. We're going to do track and field. So the collaboration with the schools, with the library, with the municipality, this is the perfect model. I actually did my thesis. I have 2 master's degrees. I did my thesis on public-private partnership and how it impacts our urban area. This is the perfect opportunity for me at this part of my career. thank you for letting me have the opportunity to work here for the citizens of Maywood, and that's why I'm here.
All right, so then I'll hear this. So we need to make sure in the agreement that it's identified who's paying for whatever overtime, if overtime was to ever take place. Based on, to your point, there is no normal Saturday hours, but if there was an event to happen on a Saturday, you would give well in enough advance, and whatever additional fees will be put into that.
Yeah, it would be our standard language, which the parties would work it out, if it was a $50 charge, because, we had to have a public works or police officer, somebody come over to close up after normal hours, and that would just be an obligation to pay at some point to true up with the village.
What are normal hours? I mean, has been established? I don't know if that means is there something,
And that was, we'll have to identify that to figure out, because with the new manager, and there's been department reorganization, we'll have, and she's in charge of staffing, we'll look at that and figure out what the normal Saturday, work hour is for people that would be responsible for opening and closing the building, and we'll put those parameters in, and then we would just be responsible for anything.
we're happy to work within those parameters.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And the goal would be to actually have if possible, to have a police officer, the big thing is, before we had with the keys floating around, you had people with access to the facility, and then, who's cleaning up when they leave, questions about, who did what when they were there, just quality control.
Trustee Peppers?
Yeah, I had a question. I heard the gentleman speak on track and field and football. I didn't see anything over here about football, track and field and breakfast.
It is coming, and
Oh, okay.
this is part one. It's
Okay,
coming.
okay, so that was my first question. Then my second question, when you talked about certified coaches, are we vetting these coaches on background checks? I mean,
Everybody has to, beginning in fall of this year, if they're running any programs on any park district facility, have to have the background checks. Our district goes through NCSI, which is the national background checks for Parks and Recreation. So everybody has to go through the background check. That background check is not just an Illinois check, it's a national check. Once we get that back, that's the indicator on whether they can coach. And we do know there are some people that have second chances, we get that. But it is imperative that we know who is working with the park district on the fields that represent the village of Maywood, and if they are really eligible to coach. It's a safety issue.
the second part of that question is, once they pass the background checks, just say they have some pending legality situation that
That
occurs.
is when we take it to the, if it's a parent organization, we take it to the parent organization to let them know we are aware of this, they need to figure out what to do with that person, and we move on from there. It is not the park district's, it's not our intent to say you can't coach because of X, Y, and Z. It's our intent to say you have the minimum requirements within your coaching system that we are okay with, and your coaches are able to work with the children in this community on the fields that we have to govern.
And, I'm just looking on the sheet here, this is just straight for, athletics, correct? You don't have anything in here in reference to after-school tutoring and things of that nature? That's it?
That's a whole different
Okay.
conversation,
All right.
that's nothing to do with this.
Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions?
Mayor,
Trustee, Jones?
just really quickly, when do you need to kind of get something done with this? I know it's like late August, says it starts in October. What's your expectation when we can get back to you on this?
I think we see some start September.
It's right,
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I saw October.
no, so where you see the first section of fall sports, it says first day of school. And then the first one is September 15th and September 16th. So if we could get tonight a motion to agree to allow legal and staff to draft up the final document, and have all three parties agree on what the final document would be, we could actually take action on this at the Cal. But we need to agree to allow legal and staff to work with the governing bodies of the Park District and the School District 89 to get to the point of doing the final vote on it. So,
Motion to, allow staff and, the village attorney to, work on the agreement for, this partnership. I second that motion.
all right, it's been, stated by trustee Brandon, seconded by trustee Sanchez. Are there any questions? Please call the roll. Oh, trustee Lightfoot?
Oh, no, I was just bringing it back.
All right, please call the roll.
Trustee Sanchez?
Aye.
Trustee Reyes Plummer?
Aye.
Trustee Jones?
Aye.
Trustee Lightfoot?
Aye.
Trustee Peppers?
Aye.
Trustee Brandon?
Aye.
And Mayor Booker?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
I'm good with that.
All right, item 6, public comment. Do we have anybody?
We do not, may I get
All right, so I see that there's 2 hands up. So public comment, and for future reference, I mean, we'll definitely let you guys come up, but you have to be here before the meeting starts and sign up for public comment, but you're more than welcome. So remember, public comment, we only have 3 minutes. Please state your name. You do not have to state your address.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Village officials and the residents. I'm a living Nassau. My name is Carol Woodard, Woodard, longtime resident of Maywood. And I've got 3 things I want to talk about, but they're kind of interconnected. Parking. Parking in the 100 on 9th Avenue between St. Charles and Oak is terrible. We have some residents that know they should not have their cars on the street at certain times. There's signs on both sides, multiple signs throughout the block, and they park there. I call in, and official officer does come, but I'm wondering how come the police, when they go down these blocks, could they please, see what's going on, issue a ticket or whatever? I know we're in, pandemic, mode, but not really. We've been graceful so many months now. If that's what's going on, but we've been here a long time, and we used to have, people who see that, and they get out and they give them a ticket. I've got some addresses, I won't give them out loud unless you want them. That's one thing. Then also, the trucks, TJ Ryan has trucks, long trucks that they park at 6 in St. Charles. And I don't know if it's them or the AB Wash, the company at 9th in St. Charles. But there's a long truck I saw yesterday and just now parked at 8th Avenue. And I actually went into the fire, driveway and wanted to let them know. And they go, we know when we call the police. I'm not understanding how this goes on all the time. It goes on too long. It's not safe. It's blind spots. People coming from all different directions on 8th, on 6th, coming from 5th even. There could be an accident, and it's not like we're not looking. And then also the trains are so bad, that something's gotta be done. And so when you have your abusers parking on the street when you're not supposed to, that does nothing but, make the matter worse. So I'm asking, please, if you don't have a parking team, get somebody who knows that this block, these cars should be off the street and give them a ticket. They know. I even told them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Woodard.
you for letting me talk.
My pleasure.
Yes, I didn't know. I just had something I had to do.
I understand. Sir?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My complaint is about
Oh, name, sir? I'm sorry, can you give your name?
kids.
Ken Reese.
Complaint for commercial vehicles 13.10. I'm a truck driver and I have a commercial truck that is parked in my driveway. But the village of Maywood keep issuing citations. They say I can't park or have a commercial building, but this is my work.
Is that your only comment?
Yes, so my question is, well, I tried talking to the village, I tried talking to police officers, the lieutenant, Lieutenant Fairley, the village administrator, but they all said I can't have, no commercial building, or I own it, this is my business, it's not, it's part of my driveway, so I pay taxes on my property.
All right. Okay. That's all you want to say?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so, thank you, Mr. Reese. So, Ms. Woodard, we'll definitely, the village manager is gonna give you her card so that she can talk to you about the parking issue, and then we can talk about the T.H. Ryan or the other issue. And then with the train, we already have our legal team working with the train systems legal team in regards to the train issues. So we are diligently working on that, so we should have some updates for that soon. And then Mr. Reese, the village manager is already over there handing you her card.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
No, thank you guys.
Thank you, everybody.
And that completes public comment. 7, Park District and School, the district questions. I think we went through that already unless anybody has a question. All right, so then 8, training session for appointed and elected officials, board committee, commission members, discussion of IMCA, making it work, the essentials of council manager relations. So you guys see in your board packet, there is the Make It Work, the essentials of council manager relations. So there is a packet of information that's a wealth of knowledge for us all to read up on, have discussion about, and understand in regards to being a village manager form of government, where we stand versus there are other communities that are mayoral form of government. And looking forward to great conversation and discussion on these roles as everyone takes the time to read up on the information. Did, Manager Will Armstrong have a comment?
Thank you, Mayor. Just so the public knows, we did hire a director of building and code that started on August 23rd. Walter Duncan, who's already been out in the community, so I just gave my card to those 2 individuals to get their contact information, and I'll have Mr. Duncan follow up. I just wanted to include this information to the board. I want to make sure that Maywood is successful. And in order for me to be able to do that, I have to be clear on the direction of the board. And the board is 7 people. So I communicate every week with weekly updates. I email those out. Many of you respond back to me, give me feedback, or call and ask questions, and I appreciate that. And I want you all to know that I appreciate your service. I know that people come to you in the grocery store, at the gas station, when you're taking your kids to school, and I want to make sure that when you have an issue or a concern, that we as a team, the staff, are being responsive and getting things done for you all. Because that's going to make everybody happy, and that's going to help us all move forward together. We are still working out some kinks. As you all know, the administration changed May 18th. I didn't come on board until June, and some decisions had already been made. Some things had already been put in place before I got here. And so we're trying to navigate that. And I've stated a big focus for me right now is making sure that we have the right leaders in place to move the village forward. With that being said, I wanted to provide this. This is from the International City Council Managers Association, because I'm also looking at what can I be doing better to help with the direction and the initiatives of the board. So I just want to make sure that we all get on one page. And that's going to help me to be able to work with the staff to deliver. Some of the staff are getting contacted by board members. And so if 2 board members contact them with requests, they don't know what direction to go in. It creates confusion. They want to do a good job. They want to make sure that things get taken care of for our residents. But it creates confusion. And so I'm bringing this to you all, asking you, it's 8 chapters. I joke with Trustee Jones a lot because he gives me homework, and now I'm giving you guys homework. But I only started out with asking you to read the first 2 chapters. And this is something that I really want us to explore, because we can't have that. You know, it creates confusion for the staff. Even if you don't imply to them that you expect them to do something, they feel like, because of just the dynamic of you having power as an elected official and being a board member, they feel compelled that they have to do something because you're coming to them. So I've asked everybody to please come to me. I'll give an example. Trustee Reyes Pepper had an issue at the last meeting about something. I'm sorry. I just completely combined, I'm sorry, Reyes Plummer, excuse me. I have married people now, I'm sorry. I apologize, Mrs. Peppers. And Mrs. Plummer. But she came to me with the issue, I addressed it, I emailed the staff, I blind copied her so she knew I took care of it. I will take care of it. But it has to come from me. They can't have 7 bosses plus me. They have to take direction from me. So that's why I've included this tonight. And when we get together to start doing some of our workshops together, our team building, and our visioning sessions, you know, it will help us moving forward. I need to be clear on what the board wants, because I report to all 7 of you. And so I'm just asking that you take some time, and if you have questions, you know, contact me. You all have my cell number, and let me know, you know, what I can do to be helpful. And then the last thing, Acting Chief Willis, I spoke with him. We've had, of course, an uptick in violence, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't know what the previous chief had done in terms of when we have incidents. Does he know? I know the mayor gets notified, but I wasn't sure if the board was being notified, and I wasn't sure if you wanted to be notified, how you wanted to be notified. So most of you did respond back and say that a text message is appropriate, it would work for you, or whatever was easier. So I've asked the acting chief that moving forward, if we have any incidents of violence, homicides, those types of things, you all will be notified through a text message by the acting chief so that you are aware of what's going on as well. Any questions for me?
Yeah,
Trustee Brandon?
not really a question, but, yeah, so we were definitely, notified, as I mentioned in the email, in regards to any, homicides in town, and again, direct any, media outlets to, Carmen Rivera, who was the spokesperson, on behalf of the, police department. So, I know with the change, it has stopped a little bit, but definitely, on all major crimes like a homicide issue, we definitely received an email regretting to inform us that whoever the individual was had been killed or murdered in the village.
So moving forward, it'll be a text message from the acting chief. I think he's utilizing Lieutenant Diaz on communications. And they put out a press release this week as well. But moving forward, you will get a text message.
Village Manager?
Yes,
Trustee Reyes Plummer?
Thank you. Would we be getting a text message per incident or?
Homicides.
Right, no, per incident or per, like, one group? Like, say, for instance, I know it's a homicide, but for instance, we have multiple in one day.
You should be getting notified of all of them.
Each and every.
Individual.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, you should.
All right. If there's no other questions for 8A, 9, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
It's been motioned to adjourn, second by Trustee Reyes Plummer. So we'll adjourn and then we'll go into training.
No, we should adjourn, we should do the training.
We should do
as all
the
part of
training.
meeting.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
okay.
When I'm done with my horse and pony show, then we adjourn.
So we need to take back the adjournment. And, so we will, so there should be a line B, Open Meetings Act training, under 8A. Okay. So adding item 8B, Open Meetings Act training.
All right, it's got it.
Yeah, you can sit out in the crowd, Marvin's gonna put the PowerPoint up. There's tons of food down there, so, you know, there's pizza, there's veggies, help yourself. Hope you're good.
Hey, I don't know between this, school, kids not listening. It's just, it's something. It's something. It's something. And then, you know, you gotta throw in there a little sprinkle of, like, hey, I'm a girl. Oh, you know.
Right there. It's a hand way down. I got my quote, but I'm just gonna go down here first.
Now, that's why you was down there first.
There should be, one set of pepperoni, there should be one sauce and less cheese. We got a birthday cake, because we have some birthdays in this summer, and this fall. So once you're done with your meal, we're done with the cake. We'll take a cake break. Oh, those are nice looking trucks, so they're pretty good.
They are. They're my
We got a roll.
So
That's so good. Walking chicken?
yes.
I like that feature. My last pair of trucks, even had chicken back was just the regular cans. Bags are great.
Can I get one of those?
Yes, you can.
Thank you, ma'am.
You know, it's mama's.
I always sit like,
Because Marvin embarrassed him with that little bottle of water.
I did the best I could with what I had. I'm thirsty a little bit. Get up and ask the first. Gotta sit through this whole thing.
give your whole meeting to pace yourself, right?
We start with that too.
How are you? Just chugging along.
They gave all this inspection, so she gonna check all these.
That's just another veggie place.
Very polite.
Not the sidewalk we come from your house. That was a long time ago. Sidewalk on the sidewalk. So I'm
She think I'm ignoring it, I ain't even getting
Once you said that, I said, well, stay off the street. Right, but that's it. That's the really sad.
Yeah.
Hello?
So which version is this? Is this the extended version or is this the short version?
Hello?
This is the extended version, I'm gonna do it really quick. We'll be out of here.
And then say,
What time? What time?
You're gonna hold me. You're gonna hold me.
We take like 8 minutes?
No, we got to, at least.
Your bottom line is, let's crank it, because your bottom line is, this is.
I did it last time. I don't
What
think
it's
it's
about, doing it right, and hearing it.
I'm not.
I mean, you go 6 hours in the program, that's, I try to give it to you in 2.5 hours. But I definitely questions and answers.
attracting people that
I'm sure, I want you guys to, have questions, let's grind through it. Get questions answered, sometimes there aren't yes or no questions, and let's talk about it.
Oh, you put in? What do you do?
I just like the fact that I don't have to wear a suit and tie.
I'm sorry, no.
Right.
That was the memo for tonight.
I knew I was innocent.
What?
I'm innocent.
You innocent?
I'm innocent. I have nothing, ignoring nobody.
I'm gonna stand here and talk. My back will be to you. Do you wanna sit over there just so I can?
Yeah.
Sit, you cool? That's fine. All right.
I can go over there, that's not a problem.
Yeah. I just wanna have you back there all the time.
Oh, man. I got Woo! Oh! It ain't got straight. She said, she emailed me, I never seen her email. My kid was giving her home from her. Good answer, she won. His house. So we got found out. My phone was bad. I had to forward my husband.
Yeah. Good luck. I called that number myself. Of course. He's good for about 3 out of 16 games.
Good.
What about the channel?
I need to get contact with me because I'm sending it.
Look at what I gave you the phone. Show me.
Like, thank you for,
Pepperoni?
local
Sausage, cheese, and pepperoni, cheese, just cheese.
No.
Oh, really? The pepperoni, cheese, and then cheese.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, you know what? I was debating on that, I was like, yeah, fresh.
No, all the way to the left.
Michael, a funny dude, man.
Thank you, Mike.
And we'll take a cake break, probably, little ways down the road, once we get through the program. We'll get a little sugar bars before we go home. You tell me when everybody's ready to roll. We good?
Ready to roll.
Ready whenever you are.
All right, let's jump into this. Good evening, everybody. Every 2 years we do this, you know, for duly elected and carryover trustees, board members. I like it when your other trustee, or your other boards, committees, and commissions show up. We kinda got a light audience, but, so 2 years from now, when we do this again, we gotta make sure, get the word out, because plan commission should be here, your board of fire and police should be here. Anybody else that's a committee member or commission member, this is really for them too. I did email the PowerPoint, so maybe the clerk's office, you could blast that out to any of the other, you know, committee, commission members, and appointed officials. And, you know, it's good for them. There's 120 slides, there's text on 118 of them. We're gonna power through this. This is honestly about 5 or 6 hours worth of Illinois Municipal League conference material that I do. And I'm gonna try to condense it in about 2 hours. I'm gonna hit, the following topics, and when we get done with each kind of topic, let's, see if there's any questions. Let's try not to sidetrack too much in terms of lots of questions and get bogged down. You know, I'll stay as long as you want at the end of the session, but if you got a question, you know, that's kind of, you just gotta get it out. Let's deal with it as we go. Let's wait till we get through the material of each topic. We're gonna talk about orientation to do checklist. We're gonna talk about home rule authority in your council manager form of government, because that's what we are. Or Article 5, manager by referendum for the statute. We're gonna talk annual budget and tax levy, why that's important. You're gonna do a budget amendment sometime in the next 60 days. I'm gonna have documents in your next board packet to deal with that budget amendment. We're gonna start doing a tax levy process right now. You know, it's the end of August, September, October, November. You as a board, you dive into staff with tax levy prep work. And there's a couple things we have to approve along the way, but first week of December, we're gonna have a public hearing on the tax levy. By the middle of December, your last board meeting, you gotta approve it. It's the type of thing, you can't push that off into the first quarter of 2022, because if you don't approve your tax levy on time, you don't collect that money from the state, you know, so it's one of those deadline timing things that's super important. So I got a little flow chart to run you through that. It's the same process every other town does across the state of Illinois. Nothing different about us or anybody else. We're doing the same thing that's required by the statute. Procurement and bidding, we'll touch upon that real quick. How we buy things, you know, contracts we enter into. Open Meetings Act, that's probably the most, out of all these things, your budget, your tax levy, and your Open Meetings Act are really your two most important things. Just in terms of, you gotta pay the bills with the tax levy in the budget. And the Open Meetings Act is how do we meet, discuss things, and approve things like contracts without violating the state law and getting into trouble. So Open Meetings Act is hypercritical that we know the basics and why it's important, not just for you, the board members, but it applies to every commission, committee. So all these new trustee committees that we have, you guys and gals are subject to the Open Meetings Act. So the chairs of those gotta have an agenda posted, right? You get 48 hours in advance notice posted wherever your meeting location is at Village Hall. You're gonna have to like help work with the clerk's office to get your agendas prepared. Somebody's gonna have to prepare the minutes of those committee meetings. Those have to be approved by you, you know, at your next subsequent committee meeting. So that's gonna be a new kind of role and responsibility for the trustees that other trustees in other communities, sort of old school, they've been doing it for a number of years, sometimes decades. We're moving to a system of trustee committees that a lot of communities use, but it's gonna be new for us. And a bunch of my other clients all do that, so, you know, I've seen it, it works, but it's gonna be a period of an adjustment, just like it was for those communities when they shifted to that type of, operation. FOIA is a real big deal. You don't handle FOIA requests as board members, committee members, but clerk's office does. You know, you have FOIA officers, I get involved. There are do's and don'ts with how we communicate, text message, email that helps us manage the FOIA obligations. FOIA is all about transparency. Bottom line is the Better Government Association, some of these watchdog groups, they're not there to really be transparent. That's what they say. At the end of the day, they're trying to catch you in screwing up. They're trying to catch you in a way that can embarrass you personally, me personally. They're trying to deep six us at certain levels. What they don't do is they don't do 20 FOIA requests, look at 10,000 sets of documents, and write a piece that says, damn, I looked at this community and they are doing everything great. That article never gets written by the Better Government Association or the other watchdog group. They don't do that. They only write, pieces that catch people's attention and they try to trip you up. If they're kind of, shock type articles. There are sometimes that, yes, Better Government Association uncovers fraud and does a good job. I'm not gonna ball my up too much, but most of the time they're trying to catch municipalities and make people look bad, which is unfortunate. Board meetings and procedures, we're gonna hit those. Agenda prep, we're gonna talk about that from the standpoint of how our board meetings, agendas get prepared, because we have a set of rules that just got adopted by the last administration. They're very detailed, and a lot of the board members had input on that. But that same agenda prep carries over to the trustee committee, so you gotta think about how those agendas get prepared and think about that when you're sharing those. We'll touch upon voting and Robert's rules. We'll talk about just a quick overview of all your boards, committees, and commissions. Next set of things are real important: conflicts of interest, ethics, state Band Act, and the village policies, and the inspector general. Those are all things we have to be aware of, and we have to be careful to make sure we comply with, because when we get into conflicts of interest, you can lose your seat over a conflict of interest. You violate the ethics of the gift ban act. What can happen there is, you get sanctioned, it can be a felony if you trip up in the wrong way. So there's serious repercussions. So I'm here to kind of guide you through that. My materials are here to be a resource. I'm always a resource. So if you think you got an issue conflicts-wise or gift ban-wise, you all get my cell phone. Call me. Don't look for an off-the-cuff opinion at the last minute or the 11th hour. Call me in advance. Let's talk through the facts and we can work through it. The Illinois Municipal League publishes Open Meetings Act books, ethics, gift ban, conflicts of interest. My firm's written those. I've given those out before. So all the materials here are just kind of borrowed from those materials. So let's dive in. What's our orientation to do checklist? Well, first thing is, for the newly elected officials, we got to know what your role is. Read the codes, read any of the policies that apply to you in your role, working for the village. Whether you're part of a commission, committee, or board, understand what your power, your duty, and your role is. Remember, whenever you serve on a board, it's about it's working together, it's collective action, and try to advance the public body's goals and objectives. Everybody's an individual, everybody wants to shine, but the reality is you get things done by voting as a collective body. So at a certain point, you got to work together, you got to build consensus. So really, everybody works for a recommending body, unlike the village board. I mean, the village board is